and welcome to Unidentified with Linda Kay.
Yes, me. We talked about a case we talked about before on the K-5.
Okay.
Right? I've learned some stuff about it since then.
Okay.
So this is going to be some new information in this case. We're going to talk about Pleasant Hill, which is a small community in Northampton County. You ever been there?
No.
Okay. On the show last year, I reported that the subject of today's episode was found in the woods by hunters on Christmas in 1983. People always found in the woods at Christmas time. We've gone over this over and over. We're going to talk about it a lot in the coming months on Unidentified.
Right.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, big hunting time.
Yes.
The foliage is way down.
Mm-hmm.
That's why most of these bodies are found in December, especially around Christmas and Thanksgiving, because of those two reasons. Well, what I didn't know then, I'm not saying it's new information, I just didn't know it.
Right.
Is that the person that we're talking about was found in the woods, but she was found in the woods behind the rest stop on Interstate 95. Right, so that kind of widens the possibilities of who could have put her there. Right, she could have been dumped there by anybody at a rest stop on 95.
From anywhere.
And when this happened in '83, I mean, there were no cameras or anything like that to help identify who could have done this. So.
Right.
If you've got a dead body and you're driving down the road and you're looking for somewhere to dump it, pull over to the rest stop, carry it out in the woods and drive off. And it would have been really easy for anybody, a man or a woman, to dump this, because we're talking about a 4 to 7 year old girl that we've talked about before on the show. She suffered from abuse prior to her death, according to her autopsy report. She had healed face bone fractures, where someone had hit her. Brittany, put that picture up.
Lord.
The sketch, 7-year-old girl. I thought I had. There we go. So I'm sure you remember her.
I remember seeing. Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about her before. So again, when they got into doing, it was just her skeleton that was found. When they got into doing that, they saw where she had been injured in the face more than once.
Wow.
Right. So you think about she's 4 to 7 years old. They're really leaning into about 6 years old now, somewhere around in that area.
Right.
And not only had she died and been dumped in such a terrible fashion, but she had probably suffered abuse her whole life leading up to that. They've done a lot of DNA in this case and a lot of other science that we'll get into in a minute. But they know that the girl's biracial. She's black and white. They don't know how she died, but like a lot of these cases, the location of the body, found dumped behind the rest stop doesn't, she definitely didn't have a pleasant end.
Right.
And given that she had obvious prior injuries to her face, they pretty much know that she was murdered. Law enforcement believe a family member killed the little girl because there's. Put that back up.
So she was found.
Out of the load.
I know exactly where that is.
This is the rest stop right before
Welcome Center.
Yeah, right before the Virginia border.
Yeah, Welcome Center and rest stop.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So that's Roanoke Rapids would be right over here to the left or right. I'm confused about it's our left or their left or whatever, but it's just north of Roanoke Rapids, right before you get to the Virginia border, about a mile before the Virginia border.
Right.
And so, the people who dumped her there really could have been from anywhere, right?
Right.
So there was also no clothing, no jewelry, no personal items, right? So she was stripped down. Everything was taken away from her that could have possibly identified her. Body thrown in the woods. So the case has been. I give a lot of credit to Northampton County, because some of these cases that we've reported on, you see where there's not a lot of work being done on these cases. But they've done a lot of work on this case. And they got a new guy assigned to it now that I think is going to make a big difference, and that's Lieutenant Alan Roy. He used to be that's him there. The taller man is Jack Smith, the sheriff of
I know
Northampton
Jack
County.
Smith, uh-huh.
And Mr. Roy he was the police chief in Rich Square for a long time. And then when he retired there, he went to be an investigator with the sheriff's office. That was him there a couple of years ago, where he completed the criminal investigator program at Wilson Community College, and he received an advanced deputy law enforcement certificate in 2019. So I mean, he's 30 years in law enforcement. He's got a lot of credentials to go along with it, right?
But how do you find somebody that's been dumped at a rest area, which indicates it could be from anywhere, gazillion people?
And I think, I mean, that's a really good question, and the two answers are these, right? Number one, it starts with the lieutenant there, right? Because I found where recently he had went on Web Sleuth. Are you familiar with Web Sleuth? You know what that is? Mm-mm. Web Sleuth is a website that was started in 1999, and it is a crowdsourcing investigative website. In other words, a bunch of amateur detectives go on there and they look at cases and they try to suggest what they think happened. Now, I mean, I can tell you this.
2 heads is better than one, right?
Right, and 1,000 heads is better than 2.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, while sometimes they entertain some crazy conspiracy theories and they go off the deep end on some stuff, they've also helped solve hundreds of murder cases. And the way it works is someone will post something and they'll say, "What do y'all think about this case?" Well, just in the little bit that I've done over the years, what they call armchair detectives, or internet detectives, web sleuths, they can find out a lot of stuff. Because if you're a housewife sitting at home, or you get home from work and you're bored and you're sitting there all day with a computer and you're looking at stuff, I mean, they find a crazy amount of information.
And it's people that are interested in that. Exactly. These are people that probably watch the crime shows on television.
Absolutely.
I mean, they like stuff like this.
And I was really impressed with the lieutenant going on there and asking for help. So he went on there and he said, "Hey, listen, I need help with this case." I mean, his exact words were, "I need a lot of help. I'm desperate to know as much as I can about this case." So,
at least they're interested in
absolutely. It's
solving it.
It's amazing to me that somebody with 30 years law enforcement, an older gentleman, would go on the internet and put his ego aside and say, "Hey, look, if y'all, help me find out some information about this."
Absolutely.
So that's one way. You asked me how they're going to figure this out. That's one way to do it, right?
Yes.
And the other way that we talked about before, but I didn't understand, so I went and now I understand it, although I'm no scientist, is isotopes, right? So,
really?
Yeah, you'll remember it when I start talking about it. I didn't know anything about isotopes when I talked about this show last time. So when I talked about it on the K-Files, I didn't know nothing about isotopes. So I went and I read a couple of books and I researched some magazine articles. I read about it on the internet. And basically how it works is scientists can look at the oxygen that's in bodies, left in bodies, right? Even bones.
Right.
And depending on the heaviness of the oxygen isotopes that are in the isotopes in the oxygen in the bodies, and other elements, other substances too, not just iron and some other substances, they can determine where somebody's been in their lifetime, right? So just by so when we die, they probably do it before we die, but I mean I don't know the point. But they can take a body, they can examine the some of the substances in it, iron, oxygen, some other materials. They can tell by the isotopes in it where someone's been. And if you look at this map right here, I pulled out of a textbook, you can see that depending on That's looking at someone's hair, right? The oxygen isotope in someone's hair.
Excuse me.
They can determine where that person's been in the United States.
That is just wow.
It absolutely is. I mean, and it doesn't involve DNA. Last time I was on the show, I thought it had something to do with DNA, but it does not.
Well, it's good that they can do that.
Yeah, it's good forensic detective work. And so,
You know,
bless
it
you.
happens once, it has to happen twice.
Absolutely. So, they can look at that and they know where the person's been. Right? They can also tell where a person's...
That's really good.
They can tell where a person's mother's been. Exactly. It's all right. So, the Office of the Medical Examiner, in conjunction with the Northampton County Sheriff's Office, did some isotope research on this girl, and they have determined that she is a native of North Carolina or Virginia. So even though she could have been dumped from anywhere, they know that she was born here in North Carolina or Virginia, right?
Wow.
Okay. Beyond that, they know that she moved around a lot in her short life, you know. So
Right.
they know 4 to 7, they think maybe 6 years old, but she moved around. She had been in the Midwest at one point.
Golly, that's unreal.
She had been in southern Florida and central Texas at some point. So, you know, she's been all around. I guess this would be a third way. I said 2, but they don't have her fingerprints, obviously, because it was a skeleton. But they do have her dental chart, and she actually had some dental work done, which is, you know, to be that young of age, that she had a couple fillings, which says a lot of things. One, it says, you know, I mean, most children never get fillings on baby teeth, you know.
Right.
But so she had 2 fillings, which is weird that she had them, but then also that she's getting hit in the face, but yet at the same time they're taking her to the dentist. So I don't know what's going on with that.
That doesn't really
the last
go
time that
together.
yeah, I know. The last time we talked about this case, the general called in with a really good point, and he said that, because I had said that it was probably family, based on the fact, I mean, no one's reported her, I mean, no one's looked for her in all these years. I mean, if you were missing your 4-year-old daughter, you would have found her by now.
Right.
He made the good suggestion that not only family, but possibly foster family.
That was a very good point.
Or someone who had control over her, but yet wasn't close to her.
Right.
And that could help explain why she had fillings. You know, one foster family might have took her to get the fillings.
Right.
The next foster family might have beat the hell out of her, right?
That's
so
very likely.
So the dental records are available, and they do have a DNA profile. So they're working on that.
And how old was she?
She was 4 to 7 years old,
4 to
probably
7.
6. So the forensic genealogy is another amazing tool where they can begin to track down distant relatives and then zero in from there.
Right.
So here's a sculpture of her that was done by a really famous forensic sculptor, right? This was done as part of an exhibit at the University of South Florida Institute of Forensic Anthropology and Applied Science in Tampa Bay. And what they did was they had this forensic sculpturer, I guess. He did about 20 cases from across the United States, and they just happened to choose this one. I guess they were interested in it. And he did sculptures of about 20 victims from all across the United States. It's on exhibit there in Tampa Bay at the University of South Florida, and you can go there, and they publicized this really well when it came out a couple years ago. So you can look at the sculptures as it's art, kind of a grisly art, but it's art. But at the same time, it's all done in attempts to help identify these people. They've put out I think they published a book with the stuff in it and all this, whatever they can do. Anybody that has any information about this girl can call the Northampton County Sheriff's Office at 252-534-2611. That's 252-534-2611. 534-2611, and we know that Lieutenant Roy wants to hear from people. So give him a call. The hotline number here, 252-406-6736. So we need to, this case, there was a case they used to call him the billboard boy or the me bang boy. He was a kid that was, 10 years ago, he was still unidentified. And they started doing forensic genealogy on him. And it was the same case. I mean, I predicted then that it was going to be family. And just to explain for people to wrap their brain around it, adults go missing all the time. And we don't know where they're at. And an adult can just leave. They can just get tired of life and just check. I think I've done it twice in my life. So you can just leave. Right. There's no crime in it. You have no obligation to tell anybody where you're going.
That's right.
But children don't just vanish without a trail.
That's right.
Unless the person who disappeared them are the only people that know. Right. So I worked on a case one time where a family was moving to Atlanta, and they didn't want. It was a young husband and wife. They were moving to Atlanta. They had a young child. They didn't want to. They wanted to start over, and they didn't want to bring the kid with them, so they just killed the kid. Well, they were the only ones that would have known that the kid's not in school.
Right.
That he's, that all these things that parents know about children.
Right.
So they got to Atlanta and thought they were going to live their best life or whatever, but the law enforcement eventually caught up to them and arrested them for murder. We got a case, I just saw a case the other day, I think in the Wilmington area, where 2 people were arrested for killing their 6-year-old daughter. Right. So, and we talked about the family annihilator, the guy that killed his entire family, dumped them in North Carolina and moved on, and we still don't know where he is to this day. When families get tired of the responsibilities that they have, they kill the children and they try to move on. And there's 3 unidentified babies in North Carolina. We've talked about one of them on this show. We're going to cover the rest of them. But every time that you're going to find a child that has not been claimed over a long period of time. Now, anybody can pick up a child off the street, murder them, and dump their body.
Right.
But the family's going to know, they're going to be looking for that kid, and they're going to be, identified very shortly after that. So if you have a child that hasn't been identified since 1983, you've got guilty family out there somewhere.
Yes.
Especially with a baby case. We talk about the baby John Nash in the dumpster. That mother was involved in that death because it was killed immediately after birth. All right, folks, on that happy note, we're going to end the show, and we'll be back next week.
We'll be back next week. We sure will.
Thank you.